Um, Now, when police officers go out to arrest prostitutes, is that usually in response to something, like response to a complaint, or is it just because it's like a routine sort of thing?
Usually for us, it has become kind of a routine thing, but where it stems from is usually neighborhood complaints, either complaints from businesses or neighborhood associations. We used to have one neighborhood association that was so aggressive. I mean, they used to follow them around with video cameras and bright lights on the video cameras and everything, just to make their lives and the John's lives miserable and drug them off and be their neighbor.
Can they get in trouble for that?
No, there's no crime for videotaping.
Yeah.
Only comes a crime if it's a recorded sound. Sound. It's illegal to record sound, not pictures.
Really?
Sound becomes illegal wiretap.
No, it seems, I mean, I read this article from January, and it was about a police thing called Operation Get the Girls. And do you know about that? Remember? But it was in response to people's complaints that lived along US 19, and you know, of course, it's like a big prostitution area. And I don't know, I was just wondering if it was really, I don't know, a fair thing, because it's like, I don't know, I kind of saw it as the police maybe trying to appease like the residents because they weren't happy with it. But then
no, because there's a lot of different theories in police. One is what's called the broken window theory. That's a good theory, the broken window theory. What the broken window theory says is that if in your neighborhood you get rid of these small things, the littering, the broken windows in there, the graffiti, when you get rid of the small crimes, like prostitution, the bigger crimes don't show up in there either. It's when a neighborhood doesn't show ownership of their particular area that all that comes in. Because usually if there's a lot of prostitution in the area, drug activity starts to follow. Because most of our prostitutes are drug use. So, and the whole essence of community policing when it started years ago was that we work in partnership with the community on quality of life issues. You know, I mean, what affects your community might not be the same thing that affects another community. Like if you lived in South St. Pete, you might be concerned with dope dealers down the street. If you lived in far north end of the city, you might be more concerned with those kids on the darn skateboards that are destroying my property. Officers are now, with the advent of community policing, they work with the neighborhoods on what's important in their neighborhoods to change the quality of life in the neighborhood. Because if you feel like your area is safe, you make it safe. Does that make any sense? When you feel like your neighborhood is safe, you start taking more ownership in it. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. As neighborhoods start to run down, then it becomes them running down even quicker and quicker and quicker. A lot of this came out of some of the things they used to do in New York, where they had zero tolerance. They go into neighborhoods and have zero tolerance for everything. I mean, literally, all the little, tiny crimes that we don't even think about. House with a camera that people do. And as they found out that they were doing these things, the neighborhoods cleaned up all of it. I mean, because the guy you're let's say, I don't want to say harassing, but the guy that you're doing because he's littering, may also be a dope dealer. And you can't get him on dope, but man, they keep getting me for illegal parking or something like that. After a while, the dope gone, which cleans up your neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what they're doing in actuality is working. They're working on crimes, but they're working because they're trying to clean up a particular community, because the neighborhoods want to take ownership and feel safe in the neighborhood. Like anybody does.
I also read something, the displacement theory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, could you tell me something about that? Or do you know?
If you're talking about moving them from one area to the other?
Yeah, like kind of what you mentioned before, and I mean, if you really think that helps anything, or...
Helps us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about displacing them,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really, it does become a shell game, because all we are trying, like every law enforcement agency, we have limited resources. If we can push them into far north on 34th Street, now it's the sheriff's department's problem. Now I can take those 8, 10 guys that we were doing for that and have them work traffic detail
Mm-hmm.
and work on dangerous intersections or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is a lot of that displacement. And that partly is because of some of the mindset of different administrators, chiefs, sheriffs, because they work on the enforcement side, not realizing that they could probably do more if they did the prevention side. Or, you know, if they're dope deep with their dopers, maybe if we got them help, got them off the crack, then they would have no reason to go out and prostitute
Mm-hmm.
so that they could get money for crack.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what you're dealing with.
Are there any local organizations or programs, anything like that for prostitutes? I did try calling around some different women's clinics and places and asked them if they sheltered prostitutes, and none of them said that they did.
Not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
Not the only ones that will shelter them are the same groups that are sheltering our homeless right now. They're the only ones that take them in. There is a couple, if they are on dope, you know, and they want to kick that habit, there are places for that. There's the Davis Bradley Center, which is a state and federally funded drug rehab center on 9th Street South. And they've got beds, you know, they've got where you can stay there during the rehab and that kind of stuff. So there's things out there for whatever they want to, but prostitution rehab, no, because prostitution is a symptom for something deeper, usually.
Mm-hmm. And are these centers, are they legally not allowed to have provide any help for prostitutes? Because,
No.
no, they just part of the stigma sort of thing?
Or the way that funding is set up. I guess that we don't have as big a problem as some of the other major cities do when it comes to prostitution. So there's not a lot of organizations to rehabilitate the prostitute.